Have you ever looked at a pile of old bottles, tires, or stones and thought they were useless? Think again, because today we're turning everyday trash into beautiful, durable garden borders you'll wish you tried sooner. Welcome to Modhaus DIY, where creativity meets sustainability. In this video, I'll show you over a dozen recycled garden border ideas you can actually make, using materials already around your home. Each one is simple, colorful, and perfect for summer. There are timestamps in this video. Feel free to jump to the section you need most. And if you love what you see, go ahead, make it your own version. Because at the end of the day, the best DIY isn't about perfection, it's about imagination. Maybe to you, I'm just another face on a screen. But behind this content, there's a real story and a real family. This isn't just a video, it's a piece of my heart. Every like, every comment, every subscribe, it truly matters. When you hit that button, you're not just helping a creator grow, you're helping a dream stay alive. You're giving a small family hope, one click at a time. Thank you for being here. Thank you for seeing me. It started with a pile of discarded plastic bottles left over from summer parties. Instead of throwing them away, Maya decided to give them a second life. She rinsed each bottle clean, filled them with layers of bright colored sand, turquoise, coral, lemon yellow, and slipped in tiny solar LEDs. As the sun set, her small backyard began to glow like a lane of captured fireflies. The bottles illuminated her garden path, guiding every step with warmth and quiet wonder. Her neighbors peeked over the fence that night, asking where she bought such magical lights. Maya simply smiled and said, "From yesterday's trash." Soon, more people in her street began collecting bottles, eager to craft their own glowing borders. It became a small community movement, proof that beauty doesn't have to come from something new, but from seeing old things differently. By summer's end, her once ordinary yard had turned into a luminous walkway that seemed alive with color. Each recycled bottle told a tiny story, of waste transformed, of creativity reborn, and of one woman who decided that light could grow even from discarded things. first looked at the pile of old tires behind his shed, he only saw waste. But his wife saw color, a palette waiting to bloom. One weekend, they gathered paint cans and turned those dull, cracked tires into bright tropical art pieces. Turquoise, coral pink, lemon yellow. They lined the tires neatly along their garden, filling each one with fresh soil and vivid flowers: marigolds, hibiscus, and lantanas. Within hours, their yard transformed into a tropical dreamscape. The once gray border now burst with color and life, echoing the warmth of summer afternoons. Children from next door stopped to stare. Even the mailman slowed down to take photos. "You made this from trash?" he asked in disbelief. Liam smiled. "Yep, and the flowers love it." Weeks later, the paint still shone bright under the sun. The recycled tires stood strong against rain and wind, guarding the garden like colorful shields. What began as a simple weekend project had become a neighborhood inspiration, a reminder that even the most ordinary things, when given love and paint, can turn into something unforgettable. Clara had always dreamed of bringing color into her dull gray garden, but her budget didn't allow for fancy decorations. One day, while walking by the riverbank, she saw smooth stones glistening under the sun. An idea sparked. She collected a few, washed them clean, and began to paint: red, turquoise, yellow, lavender, mint. Each brushstroke felt like adding a bit of joy to her day. By sunset, she had a basket full of tiny rainbows. Over the weekend, she arranged them along her flower bed, curving gently like a flowing ribbon through the garden. The transformation was immediate. Her once plain garden now looked alive, dancing with color and sunlight. When her neighbors passed by, they slowed down to admire. "Did you buy those stones?" they asked. Clara smiled. "No, I painted my own rainbow." Soon, the idea spread. Families started painting their own stones, each adding a splash of color to the street. From trash and forgotten rocks came a cheerful movement, a symbol of creativity and kindness. Now, every time Clara watered her plants, the rainbow at her feet reminded her, happiness often grows from the simplest things. When Olivia's daughter came home from school holding a handful of empty mini drink bottles, she didn't see trash, she saw opportunity. That weekend, they gathered dozens more from their neighbors, washed them, and filled each one with a different shade of sand. Blue for the sky, green for the grass, pink for laughter. They lined them carefully along the edge of their flower bed, turning their backyard into a mosaic of glowing colors. As sunlight passed through, the bottles shimmered like tiny stained glass windows. Butterflies seemed to dance over them, attracted by the brightness. Every neighbor who passed by stopped to stare. "Where did you buy those?" they asked. Olivia laughed. "They were once in the recycling bin." It wasn't long before others joined in. Kids painting bottles, families swapping colors, entire fences blooming with creativity. What started as a child's playtime project became a small wave of color through their neighborhood. Under the summer sun, those bottles reminded everyone who saw them that beauty doesn't come from expensive things. It comes from seeing color where others see trash, and from the simple joy of building something magical together. When Eleanor moved into her countryside cottage, the garden was dull and lifeless. She wanted something classic, timeless, but her budget was tight. Then one afternoon, she found a few old tires by the barn. "Too ugly to keep," her neighbors said. But to Eleanor, they looked like blank canvases. She cleaned each one, coated them with soft ivory white paint, and gave them a slightly weathered touch with sandpaper, turning them into charming vintage pots. Into each tire, she planted lavender, daisies, and tiny pink geraniums. By the next morning, the scent of lavender drifted through the air. Bees hummed happily between the blooms. The once forgotten corner of her yard now looked like an English garden scene from an old postcard. When her friends visited, they couldn't believe those elegant pots were once tires. "You made these?" they gasped. Eleanor smiled and said, "From something meant to be thrown away." Now every sunset paints her white tire pots in gold, a reminder that beauty doesn't fade, it simply transforms. What began as trash had become timeless, blending grace, resilience, and the quiet poetry of summer days. Noah had always loved the ocean, but he lived far from the sea. So one summer, he decided to bring a piece of it home. He began collecting discarded blue bottles from a nearby recycling bin, each one different in shape and shade: sapphire, turquoise, crystal clear. He filled them with white sand, tiny shells, and sea glass he'd found on family trips years ago. One by one, he arranged them along his garden path, curving gently like ocean waves frozen in time. Under the sunlight, the bottles glimmered, some deep like the ocean floor, others bright as the summer sky. When the breeze moved through the flowers, the reflections shimmered like ripples on water. It was as if his backyard had turned into a seaside escape. Neighbors walking by often stopped to admire the glow. "It feels like standing by the beach," someone said. Noah smiled quietly, knowing that the sea had come to visit in spirit. Each night, when the sunset painted the bottles in gold, Noah felt a kind of calm that only the ocean could give. From recycled glass and forgotten bottles, he had built his own tide of peace and color. Sophia had grown tired of her messy garden edges. Weeds kept creeping in, and nothing seemed to stay neat for long. One day, while cleaning her garage, she found a few old mini tires in a sack of leftover pebbles from a past project. An idea began to form. She painted the tires in soft earth tones, cream, charcoal, and sage green, then arranged them along her flower path. Inside each tire, she poured smooth white pebbles, letting them glisten under the sun. The result was stunning, a natural yet structured border that looked both artistic and strong. Her garden instantly felt balanced. The rubber gave it shape and endurance, the stones added elegance. It wasn't flashy, but it was quietly beautiful, the kind of beauty that lasts through rain, sun, and time. Neighbors often paused to admire her new design. "It looks like something from a professional landscape magazine," one said. Sophia smiled, proud that her idea came from simple things. Every morning, as she watered her plants, the pebbles shimmered in the light. What was once just trash and leftovers had become a timeless border, strong, serene, and perfectly hers. Amelia had always loved to paint, but her tiny cottage didn't have enough walls left for her art. One afternoon, while tending her flowers, she looked down at the pile of dull gray stones edging her garden and smiled. Why not paint the ground instead? She cleaned each stone, mixed her paints, and spent the weekend bringing them to life. Soft lavender on one, golden sunflowers on another. Some she decorated with tiny daisies, others with bold red poppies. The garden slowly transformed into an open-air art gallery. As the sun rose, light danced on the stones, making each color glow. Birds hopped nearby, as if curious about the new blooms. Neighbors walking past often stopped in awe. "Those flowers will never fade," one said. Amelia laughed softly. "That's the idea." Rain came, and the colors stayed. Week after week, the floral stones became a signature piece of her home. Durable, cheerful, and uniquely hers. In the heart of summer, as her real flowers bloomed above and her painted ones shone below, Amelia realized she hadn't just decorated her garden. She'd painted joy itself, one stone, one brushstroke, one sunny day at a time. Oliver loved the sound of birds in the morning, but lately, they'd stopped visiting his garden. Determined to bring them back, he came up with a simple idea: a fence made from old bottles. He collected every plastic bottle he could find, cleaned them, and painted them in soft pastel shades: coral, mint, and sky blue. Then, he lined them along the flower bed, placing each bottle upright on small wooden stakes. Some he cut open and filled with water. Within a few days, the garden began to sing again. Finches and sparrows fluttered down, sipping water and hopping from bottle to bottle. The fence glimmered in the morning light, both beautiful and alive. Neighbors walking by often paused to watch the tiny visitors. "It's funny," Oliver said with a smile. "Trash brought the birds back." Over time, the bottle bird fence became more than decoration. It was a living border, a bridge between man and nature. Each recycled bottle carried its own small reflection of the sky, and every chirp that echoed from the garden reminded Oliver that sometimes, even the simplest ideas can bring life back where silence once lived. Emma always dreamed of having her own herb garden, but her backyard was small, barely enough for a table and 2 chairs. One morning, while cleaning her garage, she found a pile of old tires. To most people, they were junk. To her, they looked like potential. She cleaned them, painted each one a soft mint green, and stacked them carefully into a circular tower. Into each layer, she planted her favorite herbs: basil on top, mint in the middle, and rosemary at the base. The scent that filled the air was heavenly, a blend of freshness and nostalgia. Every morning, she'd step outside with her coffee, brushing her fingers through the herbs and breathing in the aroma. Neighbors often peeked over the fence, curious about her green tower. When they found out it was made from old tires, their jaws dropped. "Recycled?" one asked. Emma smiled, reborn. Soon, butterflies began to visit, and the herb ring became not just a garden, but a symbol of her creativity and care for nature. Each leaf she picked for her cooking reminded her that even something worn and forgotten could become the root of something beautiful and alive again. Vienna loved things that didn't quite match, the imperfect, the colorful, the unexpected. Her garden was a reflection of that spirit. One day, she decided to merge two of her favorite DIY materials, bottles and stones. She spent an entire afternoon sorting through her recycled pile. Clear bottles, blue bottles, tiny ones from sauces, and painted her collected stones with swirls, dots, and little flowers. When she laid them side by side along her garden path, something beautiful happened. The sunlight caught the glass and danced across the painted rocks, like a rainbow skipping through her yard. Neighbors began to stop and stare. "It looks like a fairy trail," a child whispered one morning. And Sienna smiled. That's exactly what she wanted. Each bottle held a little color of her mood, and each stone carried the touch of her brush. Together, they became more than decoration. They were joy in physical form. When evening came, and the fairy lights flickered across the border, it truly looked alive. Shimmering like magic had chosen her garden as its home. From simple trash, she had built a path where imagination bloomed with every glance. Lucas wanted his kids to fall in love with nature, not through screens, but through the soil, the colors, and the joy of creating. One summer afternoon, he found a few worn-out tires behind his garage. Instead of throwing them away, he and his children decided to bring them to life. They scrubbed the dirt, grabbed bright paints, and turned the tires into cheerful creatures: a ladybug, a frog, and a smiling bee. The kids laughed as they glued bottle cap eyes and dotted wings. Soon, their dull garden corner became a playground of color and imagination. By sunset, the critter border was complete, a row of painted animals guarding the flowers like tiny sentinels. When the lights came on at night, the reflections made the creatures seem alive, as if they might hop or buzz at any moment. Neighbors stopped to take pictures. Kids passing by pointed and giggled. Lucas knew they had made more than decoration. They had made memories. Every time he watered the plants, he saw those bright faces smiling back. What once was trash had become laughter and paint. Proof that creativity, family, and color can turn even the simplest corner into a story worth telling.